Imagine this scenario. It is 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, boy.
Right. The house is completely silent except for your baby who is crying again,
Naturally.
maybe for the third time in 2 hours. You're exhausted, your eyes are burning, but you pick them up and you put them to the breast and you have this sudden sinking feeling.
Yep, the panic.
Because your breasts feel soft, maybe even flat or kind of floppy. And this completely terrifying thought just loops in your brain. You think, I'm empty, the tank is dry, my baby is starving because I have run out of milk.
It is a visceral panic-inducing moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think almost every single breastfeeding parent has been there or has feared being there. That late-night anxiety is incredibly real.
It really is.
You feel like you've just hit a biological wall.
Exactly. And today we are doing a deep dive into exactly why that fear exists and, more importantly, why it is biologically and scientifically wrong.
Yes.
We are looking at a really fascinating piece of source material titled "The Breast is Not a Water Tank."
Which is just a fantastic title because it immediately attacks the core metaphor that causes so much of this trouble.
Right. Our mission today is pretty simple, but I think it's really powerful. We want to take that anxiety about the empty tank and replace it with the confidence of understanding the biological factory.
I love that.
Because, as it turns out, the way we imagine breastfeeding works, it's like a gas tank filling up and draining, is just a complete myth.
And it's a myth that isn't just wrong, it's actually highly counterproductive.
How yeah?
Well, if you believe your breast is a tank, you make decisions based on that. Decisions like spacing out feeds to quote-unquote fill up.
Right.
And doing that can actually actively hurt your supply. So today we're going to completely debunk that water tank model and introduce you to the factory model.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why are we so obsessed with the idea of the breast as a container in the first place? Why is the water tank analogy so seductive to us?
Honestly, it comes down to visibility and control. Think about how we feed babies with bottles. A bottle is a literal tank.
Yeah.
It's hard plastic. It has a fixed volume, say 4 ounces.
Right. You can literally see it.
Exactly. You fill it up, you see the milk, the baby drinks it, the level goes down, and when it's gone, the bottle is empty.
It's highly quantifiable.
Yes.
And we live in a culture that just loves data. We want to know exactly how many milliliters went in. I mean, we track our steps, our sleep, our calories.
We want a dashboard for everything.
We really do. We want to track the baby's intake the exact same way.
Precisely. It feels safe because you can measure it, but breasts, they don't have measurement lines printed on the side.
Sadly, no.
You cannot see inside them. You don't have a digital fuel gauge. So in the absence of that visual data, we substitute what we know.
We assume it works like a bottle.
Right. We assume it's a storage tank.
And the logic follows that if the breast is a tank, it takes time to refill.
Yeah.
So if the baby drains it and then wants to eat again 20 minutes later, the tank must still be empty, right? That's the fear.
That is the flaw. That is the exact linear thinking that causes the panic. We think fill up, empty out, wait to refill.
Right.
If that were true, an empty feeling breast would indeed mean there is absolutely nothing left to give. But here is the major twist. The breast is not a passive container. It is a living, highly dynamic system.
So if it's not a tank, the source material suggests we need to start thinking of it as a factory. I really love this shift.
It changes everything.
What is the fundamental difference here?
Think about a warehouse versus a factory. A warehouse stores goods that have already been made.
Okay.
If you empty the warehouse, you have to wait for a delivery truck to bring more product.
Right. That's the tank model.
Exactly. A factory, however, produces goods in response to orders.
Oh, so it's just-in-time manufacturing.
Precisely. The breast is a continuous production facility. It is not a storage unit. And this brings us to the absolute golden rule of lactation.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
We hear that phrase a lot, supply and demand. But I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. How does the body actually know to produce more?
That's the million-dollar question.
Is there like a manager in the factory shouting orders at the cells?
In a way, yes. But to understand the manager, we have to look at the underlying physiology. The source material makes a really important distinction here between two types of control, endocrine and autocrine.
Okay, let's break those down. Endocrine sounds hormonal.
It is entirely hormonal.
Yeah.
In the very early days after birth, and actually during pregnancy, milk production is driven by hormones.
Yeah, makes sense.
This is endocrine control. It's automatic. The lights in the factory turn on because the hormones in the bloodstream say so, whether a baby is feeding effectively or not.
But that doesn't last forever, right?
No, and this is exactly where people get tripped up. Once lactation is firmly established, which is usually a week or two in, It switches to autocrine control.
Autocrine.
Yes, meaning it is regulated locally, right there in the breast tissue itself.
Local control. So each breast is kind of making its own independent decisions based on what's happening to it.
Yes, exactly. And here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. The source material highlights a specific protein called FIL.
FIL, feedback inhibitor of lactation.
You got it.
That sounds, it sounds very restrictive. Inhibitor, what does this protein actually do?
Imagine FIL is like a stop work order or a chemical signal that basically shouts, "We are full."
Okay.
FIL is actually a natural component of the breast milk itself. So when milk sits in the breast unremoved, FIL accumulates.
Got it.
And as the level of FIL rises, it sends a chemical signal back to the milk-producing cells that says, "Whoa, we have plenty of inventory. Stop making milk. Slow down the assembly line."
Wait, so full, firm breasts are actually actively receiving a signal to stop working?
Exactly. Fullness is the brakes.
Wow.
Now, when the baby nurses or say you pump and you remove that milk, you're also removing the FIL protein.
Right, the milk leaves, so the protein leave.
Yes. The FIL levels instantly drop. And suddenly the signal changes to, "Hey, inventory's low. Ramp up production. Go, go, go."
That completely flips the script on how we think about this, because I think most people intuitively associate a full hard breast with having a lot of milk and a soft breast with having no milk.
That is what researchers call the paradox of fullness. A full, firm breast is actually a slow breast.
Because of the FAL.
Exactly. It's a factory that has shut down its line because the warehouse is temporarily full. A soft, less full-feeling breast is actually a sign of a highly efficient system.
Because supply is perfectly matched to demand.
Yes. The factory is working in real time, making the product exactly as the baby orders it.
So if you're sitting there at 3 a.m. and your breast feels soft, that doesn't mean the kitchen is closed?
Not at all. It means the stop work order has been lifted, the line is open.
That is so reassuring.
The researchers mentioned in our source, C.J. Wild and colleagues, they point this out very explicitly. Milk output is regulated by the frequency and completeness of removal. Emptying the breast isn't depletion. It is the single strongest possible stimulus to make more.
I really want to drive this point home because it's such a major source of anxiety. The source mentions that milk is made while the baby is nursing.
Yes.
It's not just sitting there waiting for them, right?
That is a crucial distinction. The factory is always on, and actually the speed of production physically increases during the feed.
How does that happen?
When the baby suckles, you get a huge surge of oxytocin, which triggers the milk ejection or letdown, and a surge of prolactin, which actively drives new milk synthesis.
Wow.
So you aren't just drinking from a static cup, you are drinking from a tap that runs faster the more you open it.
Which explains cluster feeding.
Exactly.
This is the other huge stressor. A baby feeds, falls asleep, wakes up 20 minutes later, absolutely screaming for more.
Yes.
The water tank parent thinks, "Oh no, I just emptied the tank. There's nothing left. The baby is starving."
Exactly. That behavior, the screaming, the rooting, the constant need to latch again and again, it is terrifying if you think the tank is empty.
Absolutely terrifying.
But the factory parent understands what is really happening. The baby isn't trying to drain a dry tank. The baby is actively putting in orders for tomorrow.
So they are basically the project manager screaming at the factory worker.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
By feeding frequently, they are keeping those FIL levels super low. They are telling the body, "We need more milk. Keep the line moving. We have a growth spurt coming."
That is brilliant.
They are active participants in the production process. They're essentially hacking your biology to build the exact supply they need for their future growth.
It's like they are deliberately stressing the system to build up its capacity.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this connects to another major worry, which is breast size.
Oh, yes.
People with smaller breasts often worry they just don't have enough storage to satisfy a hungry baby.
Right, the small tank fear. I'm an A cup. I can't possibly hold enough dinner for this rapidly growing baby.
But remember, size is mostly determined by fatty tissue. That determines storage capacity, sure. But it has absolutely nothing to do with the glandular tissue that actually makes the milk.
So the machinery is the same.
Yes, a parent with a very small storage capacity can produce the exact same amount of milk over a 24-hour period as someone with a very large capacity.
How does that work in practice? If the storage is smaller, where does the milk actually go?
It doesn't sit in storage.
Yeah.
They just need more frequent deliveries.
Oh.
If your physical warehouse is small, you can't store a week's worth of product. So you just ship it out as soon as it's manufactured.
Just-in-time delivery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A parent with a large capacity might be able to go, say, 4 hours between feeds. because they can physically store more milk before the FIL levels get too high.
Right.
A parent with a smaller capacity might need to feed every 2 hours because their tank hits full much faster. But at the end of the day, both of those babies are getting, say, 30 ounces.
So having to feed often isn't a bug in your system. It's a feature. It's a direct adaptation to your specific anatomy.
It is a beautiful biological adaptation. And if a parent with smaller capacity tries to force themselves onto a rigid 4-hour schedule just because a book told them to, they're going to run into serious trouble.
Because of the FEL.
Yes. Their breasts will become full too quickly, the FLO protein will spike, and overall daily production will shut down.
You really have to listen to the specific machinery you were personally given.
You have to follow the baby.
Yeah.
Honestly, the baby knows your capacity better than you do.
Okay, this brings us to a really critical part of the discussion today. The actual danger of having the wrong mindset.
Yes.
Because if you are stuck in the water tank mentality and you feel empty, your immediate instinct as a parent is to fix it.
That's right.
And usually fixing it means supplementing with formula. You think, the tank is empty, I clearly need to add fluid from somewhere else.
And this is exactly what the source material calls the supplementation trap.
Right.
Now, we have to be extremely clear here. Formula is a wonderful tool. There are clear medical indications where it is absolutely necessary and genuinely life-saving. If a baby is losing weight dangerously or there are maternal medical issues, formula is a miracle.
Yes. We are definitely not talking about medical necessity here.
Right. We are talking about the mechanics of supply. If you are supplementing routinely just because you personally feel empty or because the baby is fussing and you assume you're dry, you can unwittingly sabotage your own supply.
Walk us through the actual biology of that sabotage. What happens to the factory floor when we add a bottle of formula to top off the baby?
Well, think about the FIL protein again.
Okay.
If you give a bottle of formula instead of breastfeeding, that baby is full and goes to sleep. But your milk stays right there in the breast.
It isn't removed.
Right. It isn't removed, so the FAL continues to accumulate.
The stop work order gets louder.
Exactly. You are effectively screaming at the factory.
Right.
We didn't need this milk. We have way too much inventory.
Oh, wow.
So the body does exactly what it's supposed to do. It slows down production.
Because it wants to be efficient.
Right. And if you do this consistently, your supply actually will drop. It becomes a tragic, self-fulfilling prophecy.
You fear you don't have enough.
So you supplement.
Which signals your body to make less.
So you end up genuinely not having enough.
That is just heartbreaking in a way. The very attempt to fix the perceived problem is what physically causes the actual problem.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's not because the parent is doing something wrong intentionally. They love their baby. They want to feed them.
Of course.
It's simply because they're operating with the wrong map. They're actively looking for a full, heavy tank when they should be completely trusting the empty factory floor that is just humming with real-time activity.
This really emphasizes the deep emotional toll of the wrong analogy. The source talks about how the water tank model leads to this massive obsession with the clock.
Yes.
Parents thinking, it's only been an hour, I can't possibly have milk yet.
It creates so much unnecessary anxiety.
Yeah.
You feel like a failure because your body isn't behaving like a distinct, measurable plastic bottle.
Right.
It turns a highly dynamic natural relationship into a stressful math problem. The source suggests we need to completely overhaul our internal monologue.
How so?
We need to stop asking the fear-based question, which is, are my breasts empty?
And start asking the function-based question, which is milk being removed effectively?
Exactly. Emptying isn't the end of the resource, it's the physiological trigger for the resource.
But I have to ask the question that I know the listener is just screaming at their device right now.
Go for it.
If I can't literally see the milk, and I can't trust the physical feeling of fullness, how do I actually know the baby's getting enough?
Right.
We can't just operate on blind faith, right? We need some way to verify the factory is actually producing and shitting product.
No, absolutely not. Blind faith is dangerous when it comes to infant nutrition.
Yeah.
And this is exactly where we have to shift our focus entirely away from the breast and onto the baby.
Okay.
The source is very clear on this point. There are real indicators of success, but they are baby-based metrics, not breast-based assumptions.
Okay, so what are the actual metrics? What is our dashboard if we can't look at our breasts?
Number one is output, urine and stool. Simply put, what goes in must come out.
Right.
If you are changing plenty of wet and dirty diapers, and I mean heavy wet diapers, the factory is absolutely working. You simply cannot fake a heavy wet diaper.
Simple plumbing mechanics. What else?
Weight trends over time. Is the baby gaining along their specific growth curve?
Now, you don't mean weighing them every single day, right?
Definitely not. That's just a recipe for madness.
Yeah.
But looking at the consistent trend over weeks with your pediatrician.
Got it. And the source mentions one more really good indicator.
Yes, the baby's overall demeanor and feeding effectiveness.
Okay.
Are they alert when they are awake? Is their muscle tone good? And crucially, when they are actually at the breast, can you physically hear them swallowing?
That rhythmic kind of ka sound?
And exactly.
Yeah.
If you hear consistent swallowing, milk is moving.
Period.
Period. I don't care if your breast feels like a completely deflated balloon. If the baby is actively swallowing, there is milk flowing.
So if the baby is peeing, they're pooping, they're growing on their curve, and they look healthy, it literally does not matter if your breasts feel like flat pancakes.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
That actually means you have a perfectly tuned physiological system.
Wow.
You're making exactly what is needed, exactly when it is needed, without a massive, uncomfortable surplus sitting around triggering those stop work signals.
It really requires a massive letting go of control, doesn't it? I mean, we want to see the numbers. We want the hard data. We want the visual reassurance of the full bottle.
We really do.
Yeah.
But human biology asks us to trust the process. The breast is a remarkably responsive system. It is uniquely designed to work in tandem with the baby.
Right.
When we try to force our very mechanical industrial tank logic onto a fluid biological system, we just create massive stress for ourselves.
I really love the distinction the source makes about the emotional shift that happens.
It's huge.
When parents deeply understand that feeding frequently is normal, that it's literally just placing future orders, they stop feeling like they are failing. They suddenly realize that a baby wanting to eat again in 20 minutes isn't some harsh critique of their milk supply. It's just a baby doing their biological job to ensure their future meals.
Precisely. It turns a moment of absolute despair where you think I have nothing left into a moment of true understanding where, I am actively building my supply right now.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the sheer panic of the empty tank at 3 a.m. Where have we ultimately landed?
We've landed safely in the factory. We know now that the breast is definitely not a container with a fixed volume that just runs dry.
Right.
It is a continuous, incredibly smart production facility. We know that full actually means slow and soft, but often means highly efficient.
We know that the FIL protein is the strict manager on the floor, and the absolute only way to keep the factory running is to keep moving the product out the door.
Yes, and we know that the absolute best way to measure success isn't by how heavy or full your chest feels, but by looking down at how your baby is growing and thriving.
It's such a powerful reframe. It takes the enormous pressure off the parent to act as a reservoir and allows them to just be a responsive partner in the whole biological process.
And honestly, it reminds us that the human body is incredibly smart. Smarter very often than the mechanical analogies we constantly invent to try and explain it.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we really want to leave you with a final thought. We live in a modern world that is utterly obsessed with measuring, quantifying, and seeing everything.
We want to check the fuel gauge. We want to count the ounces in the bottle.
But there are some systems, vital, beautiful, life-sustaining systems, that actually work best when we stop trying to measure them with a ruler.
Exactly.
Can you learn to trust a system that you physically cannot see? Can you truly believe that empty is not an ending, but actually a biological signal for a new beginning? Because the breast is never truly empty, it's just waiting for the very next order.
And that is a very, very reassuring thought for 3 a.m.
It sure is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you next time.